Hey everyone, today I'm making a Sabrina Carpenter inspired look. I'm basing it off of this pair of jeans, this swimsuit, her short and sweet album cover outfit, and this tube top that I made before. Let's get on with the video. Okay, so the first thing that I'm going to show you guys is the top and how I made it. Starting off with the back pieces, I cut out these shapes that were kind of like rectangles, but the opposite side had a curved side that matched the front pieces. Now this is what the main front piece looked like. I'd already marked it out on my mannequin and I just wanted it to look like a tube top. I did make it like stretched out at the top, and that made like the bottom piece a little bit like more flowy. For the second front piece, I was trying to recreate the little white piece that Sabrina's dress had on that denim dress that she wore. The only thing that I did to make it was mirror basically like the front piece, but just cut out several inches down instead of cutting it all the way. And because I didn't give myself any seam allowance to like hem the main front piece, I ended up just like sewing this attachment that I was going to add on top of the main front bodice. It makes a lot more sense when you just like watch me sew everything down, but here I'm just marking everything with tailor's chalk, and I'm going in with my gold scissors to just get around the curves a little better. After I had cut everything, I pressed the fabric nice and flat. Also keep in mind that I had to iron down the hem. I did it off camera, but you can also just do this like later when you need to, but I kind of did it all in one go so that I wouldn't have to iron twice, or so that I wouldn't have to sew and then iron again, even though I ended up doing that anyway. I just wanted to limit the amount of times that I would have to iron. And also, by the way, I accidentally cut into like the seam allowance on the main front bodice, but that is okay. I ended up figuring out how to make that work. Alright, so these were all the pieces ironed. Next, I went ahead and I did a zigzag stitch using a rolled hem foot. This was really amazing. I had watched this one YouTube video that taught me how to do like a lettuce hem with a rolled hem foot, and I loved how it turned out. It really reminds me of like Sabrina's hair now that I'm thinking about it. So I went ahead and I replaced the regular foot on my sewing machine to the rolled hem foot. I went ahead and I did that by pressing the little lever on my sewing machine to remove the regular foot and place the rolled hem foot in the little bar that hangs onto the foot. Highly recommend that you don't record yourself while doing this, because why would you be doing that? I'm using a small zigzag stitch setting and a -3 tension to do this. I only got it in. It took like a little bit to get it to like roll, but I'm gonna pull and sew. After I placed the fabric underneath the presser foot, I was able to pull the fabric as I sewed, and what this is going to do is give you that little lettuce hem that you're going for, or at least I was going for. If you want, you could do a regular hem, but I think it's a little boring, and honestly, with knit fabric, it's just like so much better to do this. But I highly recommend that you do it with a rolled hem foot because I loved how this turned out. I thought it looked so nice. I went ahead and I did this with the pretty side facing up while I sewed. I also backstitched the beginning and the ends to make sure that everything had a lettuce hem. I went ahead and I did this to the majority of the sides, but I avoided the one side that was going to make a French seam with the front piece. By the way, I'm using stretch needles that I got from Amazon, and my sewing machine is also from Amazon. It's a Singer Stylist. After I finished all of that up, I went ahead and I ironed everything. I made sure to press the fabric so that it would look non-wrinkly, and I trimmed any loose threads that were left from when I had sewn all of this down. Alright, so this is how I sewed everything down. I first just pinned everything in place, and I went ahead and I ironed the hem for like the top band that was supposed to be like the white piece of that one denim dress that I showed earlier in the video. I also went ahead and I hand sewed the seams like this, but I didn't sew them too strongly. I just wanted to slightly hold them in place so that I would know what side was the pretty side. Alright, so now I'm taking the smallest piece and I'm going to hem it using stitch number 8, which is basically like a blind hem stitch, but it's called a shell tuck stitch. And I treated it like a zigzag stitch that I could use to just press the hem down, but I didn't actually use it like an actual blind hem. Alright, so now I pinned the smaller front piece like this onto the main bodice piece, and I'm going to sew everything down using stitch number 14, which is like a serger almost, and it's basically like a really good stretchy stitch that works really well with this one presser foot that is called an overcast foot. After I finished doing that, I went ahead and I ironed the top so that it would lay nice and flat. And I was going to sew the top front bodice piece over the larger front bodice piece, but what I decided would be better would be to just top stitch and flatten out this area using a zigzag stitch and a regular presser foot with a -3 tension. By sewing this down, I am basically flattening the main bodice piece so that it lays nice and flat against the little attachment that I'm adding on to it. As I had mentioned earlier, I didn't add enough fabric to basically like do a hem, but that is okay. Here I am assembling all the pieces to actually be sewn with French seams on the sides. So first I'm flattening out the attachment that I added to the front bodice, and I'm also pinning everything to its respective side. And I knew that the majority of the top would align, but the attachment that I sewed to the front bodice was going to be a little bit larger than I wanted it to, because I was reflecting it directly as the same size as the largest front piece. So I basically had to go and look at it from the back and just cut off the excess before I could do the French seams. In case you don't know what a French seam is, it's basically when you sew everything with like the pretty sides out and then you sew it in like you would a normal seam. So you basically end up with like a really smooth seam on the inside, and I always love to do this whenever I can, and I really loved how it turned out with this top. So since you sew everything on the outside first and then you tuck it in, it would make sense that I need to have the outside just be like completely even. So if I had these little thingies poking out, it would be obvious on like the final garment, so that's why I had to get rid of them. Alright, so I went ahead and I sewed the French seam using a really long straight stitch, and then I went ahead and I finalized everything with a lightning stitch. Okay, so now I'm finalizing the French seam by pinning everything on the opposite side now. So this is like if you were doing a normal seam. And I'm also tucking in the back pieces a little bit on the inside, and I'm maneuvering the front pieces that I cut in a way that they will not be bothersome, and they will also be perfectly sewn so that they're not exposed with raw edges. And now I would recommend that you cut the seam allowance just a little bit before you finalize the French seam, because I ended up doing that for another side, but here I didn't do it, and I wish that I had, because the other side ended up looking a lot cleaner, but it's okay, it ended up being fine. Also, by finalizing the French seam, I am not sewing the front pieces that I cut. I will do that later, but here you can see that I'm cutting off the edges of the seam allowance, and I also realized that I wanted the front attachment to be sewn completely flat. So after I sewed this French seam, I sewed the hem on the main bodice piece, and then I fixed these corners that I'm showing here by folding and tucking the fabric in a way that I could just sew with a zigzag stitch so that there would be no raw edges, and so that I could also hem these little corners while I was at it too. And this is what it looks like when I sewed it. I used these settings to help me sew everything down on these corners, and then I trimmed any loose threads so that the shirt would be nice and crisp. And then I ironed everything down before I flattened out the attachment that I wanted to sew down, like I mentioned earlier. Also, at the beginning of the video, I had mentioned that I made the top part a lot smaller than the bottom, like where it would wrap around my waist, because I noticed that like when I draped it on myself, or when I made like this tube top, I had posted a bunch of shorts of it earlier this year, and I had told you guys that I wanted to make a tutorial for it because you guys really wanted a tutorial. So this is like kind of like a nicer version of that top, because I did notice I kind of felt like it needed seams on the side, because when I first made it, it was literally like the bottom of a t-shirt, and I just like cut that in half and then I just like wrapped it around my body. The only problem with that was that like I really wanted like side seams, because I feel like side seams are just like more professional. Technically, when I cut the tube top, there was only like two seams and they matched up like at the back, like when I would tie it. So I went ahead and I just like wrapped like a rectangle around my body, which was like the yellow top that I made, and I put it on my mannequin, and then I marked the side seams, and then I decided that I would add 3/4 of an inch of seam allowance for the French seams that I did. So that is more of like the process of how I made it. I'm not sure if anyone even cares about that or if it sounds like way too complicated. You honestly don't need to know that. You just need to know that I made like a front piece and then I made 2 back pieces. But that is different from this black tube top that I showed you guys a lot earlier this year. Okay, so now I'm going to show you guys the jeans that I made. This is based on a project that I had already worked on last year. I turned a pair of jeans into like very avant-garde jeans. They were very much like in the shape of a pentagon, very geometric, and it was fun, but I'm not really in the mood to have very avant-garde jeans, if I'm being honest. I think from like a seamstress or like a fashion perspective, it's cute and it's fun, but from more of like a day-to-day basis, I think I kind of just want more like flare jeans, you know? I literally just need to do like a top stitch right now, and those should be good to go for this Sabrina Carpenter inspired look. I don't know why I completely forgot that I had saved this picture of Sabrina Carpenter. Like, I had already had that in mind when I was making these jeans last year, but like Sabrina Carpenter wasn't, I mean, she is a very famous person, but like right now I think she's very like everyone's talking about Sabrina Carpenter, you know? I think it's like really cute. I think I have like the mind of a mastermind or something. Like, I'm so I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. No.
On my jeans.
No, I'm like so obsessed with me picking an old Sabrina Carpenter look, and also, I don't know, I like, come to think of it, maybe she was like really popular last year too, and I kind of forgot about it. Okay, so this is me sewing everything down. I'm just using a normal presser foot and I'm top stitching. And then I trimmed off any loose threads, and I used a push pin to help me seam rip any stitches that I had hand basted before to help me top stitch. I did that by putting the push pin through a thread and then just like pulling it up so that the seam could come apart. And that was that. This is what my top ended up looking like, and this is what my jeans looked like too. Please let me know which was your favorite, whether it was like the jeans or the top. Let me know what else you want to see from me, and I really hope that you guys got my vision for both the jeans and the top. Also, thank you guys so much for subscribing. I hit 100 subscribers this month, and so now y'all know it's not just me from like my 30 other accounts, you know, like it's not just like my family, it's like actually like 100 of you that decided to subscribe, and like thank you so much. I hope y'all enjoy my future videos and also this video as well. Also, like, I'm really curious, I want to see, like, you guys could tell me what number subscriber you were. If you were like number 81 or something, like let me know. Also, like, wouldn't it be so cute if like what if I reach like 1,000 like next month, and like I'll see like comments coming back to this video and people are like, hey, like I was like number 88 or something. I don't know, but oh my gosh. Thank you guys. Bye. Subscribe.